Dude, I love these things. Doesn't this just like totally take you back to your childhood? All right, whatever. Roll the new intro. Hey, it's Nemato. Today, guys, I wanted to talk to you about building your first Eurorack synthesizer. If you guys have been following me for a while, you know that I've already kind of touched on this subject in a few other instances, but I wanted to make an official video of it today. It's also a little ironic because I know that Andrew Wong just put a video out on this exact same subject earlier this week, and so I'm a little late to the ball game here. Either way, it's a great video and I highly recommend you watch it if you're thinking about building a Eurorack synthesizer for the first time. So the difference with this video is it's really going to be focusing more on budget. One of the problems I've always found with building a Eurorack system is that it's kind of like, okay, I bought an oscillator for $250. Cool, I can make sound. But without a VCA or some type of a function generator, I really can't provide any sort of envelope or volume modulation to that sound, so I'm kind of stuck. $400 later, I've added those two, and now I kind of want like a sequencer so that I can start making melodies with pitch on that oscillator, and so on and so forth. So the point here is, unless if you've saved up like $2,000 for your first Eurorack synth, or you've decided to finance the ever-living hell out of it like I did,
try credit card debt.
You will probably be going at this piece by piece. So how do we make sure that we can utilize what we're buying the whole step of the way through building this first synthesizer? That's what I'm going to recommend to you right now. Now, there's different reasons why you may want to build a Eurorack system, right? Maybe you want a synthesizer for melodic creation or textural elements or just interesting sound design with all the infinite patching experimentation that can happen. Or maybe you're more interested in generating patterns and building up your drums in the Eurorack synth world. You really can do both, but for this method about building your first Eurorack case, I'm only going to touch on the first option, and I'll explain later why it's a little bit more difficult to do with drums. Last thing that I'll mention, guys, before we get into the nitty-gritty details is to do your research. By no means would I say that this case and these modules that I've picked for the case are going to suit everyone's needs and be the perfect fit for everyone. Definitely do your research and pick modules that maybe interest you, but I definitely think that these concepts can still apply to anyone who's going about building their first case, especially with a budget in mind. So first off, no way around it, you're going to need to make 3 purchases right away to get this started. You're going to need some kind of a case with power. You need an interface module so you can record and hear the sounds that you're producing. And third, you're going to need some type of a first module, which in this case, I'm going to recommend an effects module. So there's a ton of case options out there, right? They have really large cases that offer tons of expansion in the future. They have like little 4MS pod cases that only house maybe 2 or 3 modules in them. They also offer cases that offer a combination of 3U and 1U smaller module units in one entire case. But the case I'm ultimately going to recommend for a first Eurorack case is the Make Noise Skiff with power included in it. 1 row, 3U, 104 HP at this price is a great little starter case. It's super portable, simple, well-built design, and I use it all the time on this channel in my Song from a Skiff videos. If you haven't seen any of those, I highly recommend you check them out just because I think it demonstrates how powerful or how far 104 HP can go in the Eurorack realm when it comes to sound design. Next, for an interface module, I'm going to recommend the IntelliGel Audio Interface 2. Now, this option can really vary based on what audio interface you have connected to your computer with your DAW. The reason I'm recommending this one is because I previously owned it, and it gives you the ability to record sounds out of your Eurorack case into your DAW, but more importantly for this method of going about building a case, it lets you send audio signals out into your Eurorack case, process them, and then record them back into your DAW. Which brings me to the last module you have to purchase, which is kind of where this starts to get exciting, and I'm going to recommend the Qubit Electronics Prism. Now, I did a video on the Prism, which I'll link down in the description if you want to check it out after this, but the reason why I'm recommending it is because it comes with a handful of effects like a delay, a comb filter, multi-mode filter. Comes with a decimator or a bit crusher if you want to refer to it like that. And then like a freeze option so you can do these glitch sounds. All in this relatively small package retailing at about 254 bucks. So the reason I mentioned that video is because I demonstrate exactly what it is I'm recommending right now, and that is it'll give you the ability to send audio from stuff that you're producing in your computer or other synthesizers that you have, run it through this multi-effects unit, and then track it back into your DAW to kind of get you started in the Eurorack realm. So for around $800, if you buy all this stuff retail, we've kind of set up the building blocks for this standalone Eurorack case. But in the process now we also have this sweet little multi-effects unit that we can use to manipulate audio and different sounds that we're kind of already producing within our DAW. Sick! Alright, I've saved up some money. Where do I go from here? I buy my first oscillator, right? Wrong. I want you to use this case the whole time that we're building it. So instead, we're slapping a Make Noise Maths module into this system. 4 channels of modulation, 4 channels of just about anything that you'll ever really need for functions or creative control voltages. Also, I think still to this day that it is the most popular Eurorack module that people have purchased and put into their own Eurorack systems, all at a pretty affordable price of about 290 bucks retail. So while it can function as an oscillator in your system, for now I'm recommending that you utilize this pretty much just for modulating all those different parameters on the Qubit Prism. Using these channels as LFOs, essentially to have these control voltage generated effects, is where you're going to have the most fun synthesizing in the Eurorack world. It's not all about the oscillators. Eurorack hardware is the most interesting because of less exciting modules to purchase like this, because of all of the control voltage modulation possibilities that it offers when you're patching these things together. I promise. Now, good sir, we can buy our first oscillator. For this case, I'm recommending the Make Noise STO oscillator, and I swear to God, this video is not sponsored by Make Noise. I'm just in love with the majority of their modules. I think it's a great starting place for anyone who's getting into Eurorack. The first case that I had was primarily built up of Make Noise modules. Because of all the different CV parameters and modulation possibilities that they offer you, it really kind of shows off why you should even be interested in this stuff in the first place, in my opinion. And if we weren't going about building this case piece by piece in this demonstration, I'd probably recommend that you just go buy one of their pre-designed systems and use that for the next couple years and be happy. But ultimately, the STO is a great sounding oscillator, which is why I'm recommending it in the first place. So for about $200, I believe, regular retail price, you're getting a pretty small oscillator. It leaves a small footprint in your Eurorack case, meaning you can spend lots of money on other stuff in the future. But it has multiple wave outputs and lots of CV manipulation possibilities, which couples well with that Make Noise Maths that I recommended earlier. However, I would not wait too long before adding a Make Noise Optimix for a VCA option in your case, which retails for roughly 215 bucks. Adding this to your system is going to allow you to use the Make Noise Maths to generate envelopes and really control the volume, so you can generate really interesting like bass swells or whatever textures that your patching heart really desires with this system. Next is probably the most exciting purchase, the sequencer. I want to start making melodies and sequencing pitch, so just let me buy a sequencer already. Okay, chief. Well, sequencers tend to be a little bit more expensive, and while you can probably buy a small package sequencer at a more affordable cost, I find that these tend to leave out a lot of the most fun functions and capabilities when it comes to sequencing, especially as you look to expand your modular synth collection outside of just maybe one small skiff case. So I'm sure you're thinking I'm going to recommend the Make Noise Renee. And while I love that sequencer, it's still one of my go-tos in production today. It was my very first sequencer that I own, and now I own both versions of it. I'm actually going to recommend the Moleco Heavy Industry Varigate 8 Plus for just a little bit more. I think it retails at about $549. Now, the reason why I'm recommending the Varigate 8 Plus is, for one, it's slightly smaller, so it's going to leave a smaller footprint in the overall space that you have in this skiff. 2, I find that the user interface with the clearly marked labels for the buttons and all the different functions just make for a very intuitive experience when it comes to sequencing. And again, once you start to expand your modular synth case, if you want to get into more drum modules or sequencing rhythms, this thing offers you 8 channels of different gates or triggers to create really interesting rhythms. But on top of that, for this case, you get 2 channels of CV for pitch sequencing. Probably my favorite feature of the Variegate is the song mode. Now, other sequencers have their own versions of song mode, but I find that this one is very simple to use. Essentially, what it allows you to do is save and recall different stored patterns in terms of pitch, so you can have different sequences that just automatically cycle through. Whereas a lot of other sequencers, you're kind of just having the same 16 note pattern or however long you have it set for, just kind of looping over and over again. Ultimately, guys, this is going to come down to your research. There are tons of great sequencer options out there, both versions of the Rene, the IntelliGel Metropolis. There's tons of options. And what you need to decide is what sequencer looks like it will benefit your workflow or your work style with what you're trying to achieve in this Eurorack skiff. This video is getting kind of long. Okay, to try to quickly wrap up the rest of this, I would probably recommend a second voice so that it gives you another option for an oscillator. I can't recommend the micro braids for mutable instruments enough when it comes to your first Eurorack case. It's a digital oscillator with tons of different waveform outputs, and at 8 HP, it's got a very small footprint in a very affordable package. I think it's about $250 depending on where you find it, or you can solder one of these things together yourself if you're tech savvy. Second to last module I'll throw out there. Yep, we're doing it again. Make Noise Tempi. For about $260, this is going to give you all of the clock generation that you may ever find yourself needing. One of the coolest things that I think you could do with this is send the clock information out from your DAW into the Make Noise Tempi. Then you can do all of the clock division and multiplication, sending those different clock sources out to your sequencer, your Make Noise Math channels for all these different rhythm generations, and have it all tempo synced when it comes to recording it all back into your DAW for production. And lastly, we have 2 HP of space, so the 2 HP company is a great way to go. We could go with anything from an LFO module for more modulation possibilities. We could slap a 2 HP verb in there so that we have reverb options, since that's one of the few effects that the Qubit Prism doesn't already offer us. Or the most affordable option, just throw a 2 HP mult in there so you can mult more signals from your maths to a wider variety of CV parameters and give you more modulation flexibility. But the one that I personally would go with is the 2 HP Tune. I love having a quantizer in my Eurorack case when I'm trying to build melodies, and yes, I'm well aware that the Variegate 8 Plus has one of these built into it, but I am not very good with musical scales. Because of that, I find that the user interface for the quantizer in there is just a little bit difficult for me to set up and generate anything that I like. So instead, sending the pitch CV information out into the 2 HP Tune and slapping it into major, minor, whatever your scale preference is, it generates a melody that I like so much easier to track into Logic Pro and move on with the song from there. Regardless, whatever 2 HP module you choose from there, you have built your first Eurorack case. Welcome to the club. Congratulations. Sky's the limit, and we didn't even break the $300 threshold on any of these pieces besides the sequencer. And the biggest thing here, it was useful to your music production process, each module, each step of the way through the journey into building your first case. The reason why I'm not doing this with more of a drum-focused Eurorack case is because I really couldn't figure out a way that you could do this in the same method. While you could still start with a Qubit Prism module for processing drum patterns and interesting effects that way, I don't see a way that you can't have to go out and buy like 4 or 5 different drum modules and then a sequencer on top of that to start generating drum patterns. The only way that I can figure that you could go about doing this still would be to have a module like the IntelliGel Plonk, or a drum module that has a lot of different drum sample generation capabilities, and then feed it random triggers from another module. Problem here is you're still going to find yourself kind of chopping and arranging those samples within whatever DAW that you use, and you're still probably at some point going to want to go the direction of having multiple drum samples and a sequencer. It just doesn't seem to work as well in that step-by-step method that I laid out for more of a melodic Eurorack case. And that's it, guys. I hope you found some of the concepts in this video helpful, or maybe it at least gave you another perspective about how you could go about building a Eurorack system, because a lot of this gear is expensive in comparison to just going out and buying kind of an all-in-one hardware synthesizer with a keyboard or something. If you have any questions about modules or things I touched on in this video, or even just any comments, just let me know down below and I'd love to extend this conversation further with you guys. Otherwise, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and until next time, take care of yourselves and happy producing. Now I'm gonna eat the rest of these fruit by the foots. Bye!